Hello, my name is John Hernandez with the Latin American Film Festival of Dallas. We're here, we're pleased to have with us today Diego Soto, the director of Deaths and Wonders, Muertes y Maravillas, a film a film from Chile that we're showing here at the festival. Uh, Diego, first of all, thank you very much for being with us today. We really loved your film. I think
Thank
in
you.
our audience, people maybe don't know a lot of movies from Chile, for example. Uh, and when I was watching your film, I was thinking to myself, I don't really know a lot about Chile. I don't know a lot about, for example, where what's it called, Rancagua, where the city where the movie takes place. I was looking it up. It looks like it's about maybe like an hour away from Santiago. Can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, the relationship that you have with this particular their town, the city that made you want to kind of make a movie there?
Yes, I'm from Rancagua. It's a small city, and it's a small city that's also near to the capital, which is Santiago. So it's a small city that kind of lives under the shadow of the capital, and some people in Santiago, there's like a joke about Rancagua that is a city that doesn't exist, and that's well, that's the first time I heard that joke. It was funny, but I've been hearing it
Yeah.
for many years, um, and I am one of the first filmmakers to make movies in Rancagua. Um, kind of like a way of saying this city does exist. It is small. It is a little bit boring as a city, especially for the young people. But there is something to be captured there. There's things happening beneath that surface of boring daily life of a small city. So we're beginning to create an image of Rancagua. Me and a couple other filmmakers, um, and my position about it is that is a city that for me represents my past and my teenage years. I lived there until I was 18, and also it's a city that is kind of frozen in time. I every time I come back, I realize it doesn't change. So that is that is very cinematographic for me. That is movies. Movies are a movie is kind of like a town you can visit every time you want, and it doesn't change. Uh, so that was my hope, and I know it's kind of a very local problem. um, for example, when we showed the movie in Argentina, some critics believed it was set in Santiago, the capital, because most of the movies are set in Santiago. And I think that the kind of relationships, the kind of people, the rhythm of the things that happen in the movie wouldn't exist in Santiago. It only exists in a city that's small, that is kind of like a town where nothing happens. And so the question is, what can we tell what story can be told in a town where nothing happens.
Going back to, I guess, to the very beginning, um, is there like, is there a specific image that you started with, or was it more about kind of capturing this kind of daily life in Rancagua? Was there a specific image, a specific idea that you started with the project?
I started visiting Rancagua and walking around. I knew I wanted to make a film about teenagers, and especially about how a teenager can begin to dream about becoming an artist. In the case of a movie, a poet. And that is, and that was my question. I think it's a mystery. How can a teenager like me, or like some of my friends or people I know, how can we decide to become artists in a country where everything seems to revolve around money, and art is kind of always like a hobby or something you do or you enjoy in your free time, and there's not a lot of access to it also. In my house, when I was growing, there were only two books. One was the Bible, and the other one was a medical encyclopedia. So when I began realizing there were books, and not only as something you had to do for school, but as something you can enjoy, a world opened for me. And that was the story I wanted to tell. It's about a teenager who lives in a world that everything looks so small, and suddenly a book comes into his hands out of the blue, and the world opens for him.
Was the movie is kind of, I would say, it's a movie that's told in two halves, right? It's at first it's this a story of a group of friends, and then the second half of the movie kind of is more about, like you said, that creative birth of the guy who wants to be a poet, who's starting to wanting to realize that. Was that always there, like at the script phase, or is that something that was discovered?
um, I think like 80% of the movie was made as it was planned, but there was a very important scene at the second half that wasn't in the original script. I have to say, I have to confess that I don't work with a script in the usual format, or in the usual sense. I work with a story written in one page, uh, and then I go straight to the shooting, like a shooting plan. On Monday we're going to this character's house. On Tuesday we'll be on the street where the kids buy alcohol, and we're planning. The movie was planned as a series of encounters. The group of friends, they have to they're in a learning journey. So each scene was they uh, encountering meeting someone that has something to tell them. uh, but we didn't have like a climax, and for me that climax that we found it in the middle of the process was the poetry workshop,
Yeah.
where everything kind of comes together, where that scene I realized the movie was about uh, our ability to be open about how fragile we are, and how art is like exposing oneself to
Yeah.
others, criticism, to commentary, to someone telling you that this thing that you made with your feelings can also be wrong, can also be improved, or have problems. And um, and I think that's where the movie gained its form. And the two halves structure, I think it was there from the beginning, because I knew that the death of the friend will fracture the movie. We will have to change the tone, or the feeling. And also I didn't want to show it.
Yeah.
so I so I the screen goes to black, fades to black, and there's death, in the black, and then
Yeah.
we fade back, and a life goes on in the second half.
I wanted to ask you about, I guess, the process of casting. Uh, I was wondering if the people in the movie are people you found, maybe like, are they your friends? Are they people you already knew? Or was there kind of process of casting for this film?
Most of them are family or friends, or the, the protagonist is my brother, my younger brother,
Oh,
who is yes, who is 10 years younger, and his group of friends. They're real friends.
oh,
So the movie is kind of built around them. I went to meet them. I made some interviews, and as I stayed with them as they partied, as they lived, spend their time. And I wanted to watch what they actually did when they were spending time together, what they talked about, what music they heard, they listened to. And that's what ended in the movie. Um, and then the other characters are the mother of my best friend, his sister, the mother of one of my younger brother's friend. So it's kind of people that I felt very comfortable working with, and also that made it seem like we were not doing a movie. We were hanging out, and there happened to be a camera and a microphone. um, and then there were other characters that were some of the characters were improvised in the last minute, because when you work with people, and some of them don't understand how difficult it is to make a movie. So you ask them, please be there on Wednesday at 3 p.m., and you call them a couple hours earlier, and they say, I'm not going to make it. I'm in another town. I'm making some other thing. So I start calling, and this happened with one character in particular, which is the film director they meet at one point. It wasn't supposed to be a filmmaker originally. It was supposed to be a friend of mine, which is a thief. You know, he was going to a burglar.
yeah,
A friend of mine, which he has a past, like a past of a burglar. Uh, he's now reformed, but I wanted him to do it because he will know how to act something like that. But he didn't show up, so we had to replace him. And I started calling people, and the one who could go to the shooting was actually a filmmaker friend from Rancagua. So I decided that his character had to be a filmmaker, and that changed, the movie. It changed the scene. It changed the path, the journey of the kids. So the movie kind of fits of spontaneity,
Yeah,
spontaneidad. It fits of accidents. It fits of what reality has to give. In turn, instead of just sticking to a script,
yeah,
which is also like a Chilean tradition in film. Our most important filmmaker, which is called Raúl Ruiz, he did like 120 films,
yeah.
and he didn't use script in most of them. And I think it is because the way we Chileans speak Spanish is too strange to be written. It has to be spoken, but it can be put into letters, into written words. Uh, if you do, it will turn out fake. People will start to try to pronunciate correctly and say the things clearer. And we Chileans do not speak in a clear way. Raúl Ruiz said we don't use verbs when we speak. So I think that's important part of our identity, our national identity. And I think it is something that's also valued when seen by people from other cultures or other countries. When we see a film, whether it's Asian or Latin American or Portuguese, we want to see other other ways of communicating, of acting, and in the case of Chile, I think it has to do with not sticking to the script and not
Mhm.
writing a dialogue.
Something that I found interesting, specifically about the first half, was this, like you said, portrayal of teenagers, right? But specifically, young men, like the scrupulous portrayal of group friendship that was in equal parts kind of they're kind of like making fun of each other and things like that, but it's also very tender. It's also very almost very intimate. There's a moment, I think, where the character Yanko kind of lays on top of the kid who's sick. This is very interesting moment of kind of close physical intimacy that for me I was actually kind of surprised by it. Was that something that kind of I guess portrayal of this intimate friendship, was that also something that you discovered as well, as kind of that's how these kids were, or is that something that maybe you kind of wanted to put into the movie?
I did wanted to make a point that manhood, that growing up as a man has a lot of limitations when it comes to expressing or dealing with your emotions. That was one of the themes that I think was there from the beginning. How does a group of men friends express they are sad or they're worried about each other? And but the answer comes by looking at them, this group of friends, the real friends, and I think the friends in the movie too, they know each other since they were little kids. They have grown together, so they are almost like family. And I do think that that a group of friends, of men friends, usually don't have the tools, to talk about emotions.
Yeah.
But emotion has to come out some way, some other way. And that's where it comes out, in touching, in hugging, in also in making fun of each other, but in a way that only loved ones can make fun of each other. In that particular scene, Janko lays on Fuenza, and that was the instruction. But something that Fuenza did by himself was running his hand on his face, rubbing his hand on Janko's face. And that was a beautiful act, of improvisation on his behalf. That's something that I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
He's teasing him. He's like rubbing the sickness on his face, but it's also a caress. It's also he needs touching.
Yeah.
When people are sick, they are often isolated. So they need this to reach out to other, and one has to be brave enough to touch the sick people.
Yeah.
That's something that we became very aware of during the pandemic.
Yeah. I want to ask you, I guess, one last question. It's more about, I guess, the reality of making independent film in Chile. I don't know how it is in Chile if there's like a lot of state support for the arts or anything like that. But I guess how how did you put this movie together? Was there support from the state, or is it completely independent? How did you put it together?
It's a great question because it's a Chilean question. Uh, when I speak to fellow filmmakers, one of the things that they ask is, how did you finance it? And it's a problem. I can talk about it in English, but I couldn't say it in my country. I think that maybe, yes, we depend on state support. There are a lot of funds, and each year at the same time of the year, every filmmaker is working as for the state, with developing their projects. And the projects are seen by a commission, and the commission decides which projects will be funded, and that means which projects will be made. I have never received a state fund, and and my projects have always been rejected. And I think it has to do with how the states sees this this funding. What are they funding? Are they funding art, for the sake of society, or are they funding an industry? And I think that's what's really happening. The state's funds are administrated almost as private funds. They want movies that make a profit. They want
Yeah.
movies that have big names on the screen, and they want projects that also obey a certain way of doing movies. You have to write a script, a traditional script, and then it has to be hopefully a 3-act script.
Yeah.
American film script. How are they called? Like script gurus.
Yeah.
They really have entered the minds of Chilean script writers, and that's what's taught in film schools here. And and the outcome is that Chilean public doesn't really like Chilean films, and that is very sad. The films that are funded because of, in one sense, they can make profits, or they can show an image of Chile, to a glamorous image of Chile to the rest of the countries. And they also are funded because of they are useful in their themes. Themes have to be openly political or social, and I have no problem with political or social themes. um, some of them are really great, and many of Raul Ruiz's films are very political. But that means that some films will be disregarded because their themes don't seem to be relevant enough. And I think that happens to movie like my films, like this film. um, so what I do, and the way I fund it, is that I work in another work that has nothing to do with filmmaking, and it's an 8 to 5 job. And I earn my paycheck, and I live without spending much, so I can save to make films. And some people would say that's not ideal, that to be a professional filmmaker, you have to work in the industry. Well, but my filmmaking idol is John Cassavetes, and he worked a lot in as an actor in films that he didn't like, so he could earn enough money to finance his own films that he also made with his family, his wife, his children, his mother. And I think that's the way. And Casavetes also said that fortunately there is the system of debt, so you can you can pay your movie with debt. This movie, I finally paid it in full in October. So
Oh.
so that's reality. But as soon as I don't have kids of my own, at least I can have movies, and they are expensive. But I try to make them as less expensive as I can, so they can be made. And I think that there are in the States, there are also filmmakers that work like this. I can't remember his name, but there are a few. And hopefully that there is a circuit for these movies.
Yeah.
And that is what makes filmmaking more democratic. uh, I I really believe that everyone should be writing poetry or songs or making films, no matter how small they are. Size is not important, but it's a way to understand the world a little more. And our world today is very hard to understand. So we really need art now more than ever.